And I know Vic has one. There may be others.
It's ready to figure that.
Doesn't work. You can hold it for group or committee. It's intent on having a class social during this hour in the month of February. And as we kind of played around with that idea, it's hard to say food be brought in for me because so often unexpectedly there's food out in the hallway, snacks and that sort of thing. And then I think it was Vic said, well, we're going to talk about the theme of hope. So that's what we're doing today. I think you saw from what John sent out, what was in the bulletin, a discussion at table groups about hope. And back to the solid rock Café. We sing that song vigorously, I guess because the tune is catchy. The theology isn't quite in sync with with what many of us think about. So I looked at, they have the words in our hymnal according to themes. And I looked under the theme of hope in Voices Together. There are actually 53 songs listed. And most of them, many that are really quite inspiring and beautiful. One is number 211. I'll read the words. Hope is a candle once lit by the prophets, never consumed, but burns through the years, dim in the daylight of power and privilege. When they are gone, hope will shine on.
Who wrote the words?
I have to look that up. 218, if you have a hymnal at home, or we can get, all you need to do is slide the door back there. If your table group would like to look that up, you will know, or you can do that now. Another one was number 804. And this is 211. I'm not sure I've ever sung before in the congregation. 804 is more familiar. It starts out, there is more love somewhere, there is more love somewhere. I'm going to keep on till I find it. There's more love somewhere. But then next is hope. There is more hope somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. I'm going to keep on till I find it. There's more hope somewhere. It's many, 53 songs. 53 songs listed. When I began to think of this as groups like this as a cafe, still stuck on this social idea, I began to think about the range of life experiences you all bring to this gathering. And I began to think of that as a menu. We all have things we bring and contribute to the memory of where we find hope. We'll have some questions. You've seen the questions. I'll put them up on the screen too. But first I wanted to make reference. Last Sunday, I saw that the church now has a print of this of Rafa Barajona's artist drawing, a digital drawing. I don't know if I forgot to look today. Is it still there?
Yeah.
It's in the hallway, just down the way here. it's also in the hymn book. I looked today to see what song it is adjacent to, and it's Guide My Feet. Okay. The statement he wrote, I think, is more powerful than that song is. In the black and white in the hymn book, I had never noticed the shadows. You see the word. Now let's see if I can get to the statement. Rafa's statement is posted a little bit high and it's not so easy to read, but I thought I would read this because, first of all, well, John Bender and I were working on today's presentation a bit together, and he suggested a definition of hope, and I think of the most wide-ranging definitions from, like, I hope there'll be a parking place for me in front of the store, kind of a casual wish, to something of hope as a discipline. And I think some of the biblical references help us think about hope more as a something much more profound than hoping for it's not rain or there's a sunshine or something like that. There is often great richness in subtleties. This is especially true when it takes us a moment to really see something. I'm drawn to this notion in my work as a designer. And he calls the work Migrant Journey is a depiction of a universal story known since the beginnings of humanity. The reasons people migrate are many, but perhaps what motivates the most adventurous and even perilous of journeys is hope. While the reality of the migrant journey is too often raw, dangerous, and full of trauma, this depiction is intentionally different. This is not meant to devalue the reality, but rather to illuminate the implicit yet powerful force that drives such journeys. As depicted in this piece, there is a hidden blessing with every struggle. This is the story of the migrant one who has risked so much, not fully knowing what is ahead, yet propelled forward by a hope that is beyond one's understanding. And the scripture that inspired his artwork, Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the plans I have for you, declared the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope in the future. And then Hebrews, now faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. So I thought it was valuable to put up in terms, maybe not what we individually are experiencing, but something that that's present in the minds, in the hopes, being so many of the immigrants who are here in our congregation. Now, what we'll do today is in table groups, we put out there's some questions that are available to start when you can use them, you cannot use them, you might use one of them. You may have your own too for informal conversation. I noticed the Spanish translation in the bulletin. Someone translated discussion as debate. And that is possible Spanish translation. but not the one that would leap to my mind for an informal discussion. Don't need to have a debate, but I hope it's a good discussion. We'll talk together in small groups, and then maybe at about 11:30-ish, or no, it will be later than that. We'll draw us back together for the closing.
One that has hope for doesn't carry much weight. In fact, I would get discouraged. But if my hope is joined by you and you join my hope, and that becomes intersubjective, so that the group of us have hope, let's say for our congregation. If intersubjectively we have hope for the future of this congregation, and we move forward with that hope, that has power. If only one or two of us has that, or we even don't have it, but only individually, it doesn't have much power. Now, hope, I think in a very minor way, you have hope that you might find a parking place. That's kind of hope. You have hope for your family. That's sort of intersubjective within the family. But I think there's broader. We have hope also for our nation. And if enough of us have hope that we can have a better world, we can have a democratic society, then that has a way of winning. Because it's intersubjective. And you need all of us to join together. And so all of that leads to community. See, all of that leads then to decisions. And that's what maybe faith is all about. Hope leads to faith. So it's intersubjective also with faith. My faith takes on power as you strengthen me with your faith and my faith together. Don't stand just alone. And so the aspect of community is a very important part of what it means to be hopeful.
On the hope journey together. Thank you, John. We're here.
I didn't take notes, and so maybe others can help me, but one example was the hope that we have experienced in the way that Geraldine being cared for with the birth of her son, Liam, and the way she has been taken in by Char and Willie. We've also found hope in some of the difficulties going on in our country. For instance, in Minneapolis, the people are protesting and the church is joining that in singing hymns. It was mentioned about the singing that was done at Target yesterday. Things you want to add?
Yeah, I think that is a good point. I think the prayer was something that you brought up. That was something that is very much a source of hope for
Can't hear you.
Prayer was mentioned as something that was very helpful for people in this difficult time. Now, the protests themselves, of course, are a source of hope. There do seem to be signs of a politico-cultural shift, even some of the people who are commonly on the right have been, I think, a little unnerved by the sheer ruthlessness of some of this stuff and have perhaps been privately shamed to a certain extent, even though they won't dare say it aloud. So there are signs of a shift.
Thank you. Disciplines of music and prayer.
Calls himself Sam.
My table.
Kind of unorganized. Nobody took notes. We had a broad discussion.
Stand
Broad
up.
discussion, mainly between hope and gratitude. Right? And we looked that up. That gratitude and hope have powerful connection, are inseparable. Gratitude is a perspective that acknowledges and appreciates the positive aspects. It embraces the good, even in adverse times. Hope is the optimistic expectation that the future holds opportunities for positive outcomes. It motivates us to action, brings us to work towards positive change. Both hope and gratitude then lead to a positive outlook.
Thank you. And is an art. This table?
I brought along a list of 198 methods for nonviolent protest. This list comes from Gene Sharp, and it's old. It's 1973. He has a 3-volume work of the politics of nonviolent action. Since this is old, there would be many, many more. In other words, there are many, many ways to protest, and we have only used just a few. That gives me hope that there are things we can do. The other thing that gives me hope is the work of Beth Chenoweth. We were fortunate to hear her 20 years ago, probably, in Notre Dame. It was a John Howard Joder lecture. And she had done extensive work on nonviolent protests. She had done it first on wars, and somebody challenged her to do work on nonviolent protests. And she found that it only takes 3.5% of a population to overthrow tyranny. You don't need 51%, you don't need 50%. Over and over again, that is now the last No Kings protest was only 7 million. If we could get up to 14 million in March, that is really crucial. So there is those two things, Gene Sharp and Beth Chenoweth, give me hope.
The final table.
We talked about numerous of these questions. We ended with what feeds our hope, and Phyllis brought up, and I'm lifting this up because I so much agree that to go through our hymnal, the texts that are there that we don't always have time to pay attention to when we're reading them. Reading the music are very powerful givers of hope. Thanks for this. I knew it would be a rich menu for the things I've heard from the various tables beyond the table here too. Thank you.
We also talked about hope for CMC, and one we came up with is to strengthen and magnify the connection with Goshen College. And I heard from a number of you from our presenter last week, the Goshen College campus president, and she gave us hope in her presentation in response to our questions that can happen.
Was a strong part of our table too. I have one hope. I'll preface that. Marty and I are going to be gone for 3 months, starting Wednesday to Southwest England for the Footpaths Friends, and we're hoping that the weather will cooperate. So typically English thing to do to talk about the weather. But I hope too that some of us can learn how to operate the system back there so the microphones work. That's another technology thing. Marty will conclude by reading a poem from Emily Dickinson.
Hope is the thing with feathers. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul
and sings the tune without the words, and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asks a crumb of me. You're dismissed.